Come on, man, here, don't let me know.
Okay, all right. I was going to sing for you. I'm Keri, Hilson, singer, songwriter, actress, philanthropist.
Thank you. Crystal?
I am Crystal. I do a lot of things, but mostly I witness people and believe them through many languages like sound, breath, meditation. I get people to slow down and just be in the present moment on a daily basis.
Hi everyone, my name is Deshaunda Brown. I am associate editor at Essence and Essence Girls United, and I am so blessed to be here today to co-moderate this panel.
Oh, what's up everybody? How y'all doing? My name is Demario Monte Thornton, publicly known as Brasby for B2K, and I'm happy and honored to be here and learn from all these great individuals, so let's go.
Hey everyone, I am Freddy Morello. I'm the Executive Director of Clubhouse Atlanta. We are a mental health nonprofit in Atlanta.
So I want to start off this conversation, as you were saying, it's a very safe space here today. I want everybody to be seen, I want everybody to feel very vulnerable. So oftentimes when we talk to people, we ask them like, how are you? But it's just a way to pass through the conversation and just get to the bigger ask. But I want to kick off this conversation by asking everybody on this panel, including yourself, how's your mental health doing? So I'll start with you, Rez.
I was asked that question earlier, how's my mental health? I would say for me, I've been in Atlanta for the past 6 months and I've got around a really great support system. Shout out to Tierra Copeland who's in the building, but people that hold me accountable. When my brain drifts, it goes to a dark space. It's awesome that people help you channel that energy, and I use that through my creative gifts, whether it be singing or writing or working out in the gym. So I would say today I'm in a really good space and I'm happy to be where I'm at. Thank you, Baxter.
I'm doing good as well. Like he said, I've had my dark times. Today, this week, this year, although I've been grieving the loss of my father. Thank you. I'm actually a lot further along in that process, so I'm grateful today that I can sit here from a place of strength and that I've overcome so much of the darkness that I've experienced, to be able to share the light side of it and some resources with you all. So I feel amazing. Thank you for asking.
You know, today I'm well, and I'm honestly very grateful after the last year to be able to say that and actually mean it. I've been very intentional about being well, and today in this moment, I feel that way. So that's what feels true.
Awesome. And I'm well because we're in a room full of people. Guys, I think, coming out of COVID somewhat after the past 2.5 years, being able to be around, a room full of people is, really good for my mental health. So, I'm happy to be here.
How's your mental health?
I was going to ask you first.
You're the ladies, they go first.
I'm gonna be real honest. I was gonna lie and say that I'm good, but I'm not. I get social anxiety, and that's another topic that's one that I can talk about like forever. But I haven't been on a stage in front of people in like a while. So even though I'm like smiling and I'm happy and I'm like shaking hands and kissing babies and all that, like my fingers and my toes are shaking. Like I'm very nervous. So I'm dealing, but I'm okay. Like I'm there. Like I'm getting there. But thanks for asking the question back.
Right. I'm great, man. I think this right here is amazing, right? That we as people understand the importance of what mental health is, right? And it's pulling back the different layers of what that looks like. So I'm great. I have my family here, I have my girlfriend here, so I'm beautiful. So I'm excited to get into this conversation and really just, have a conversation about mental health, what do you manage around that? And to start it off, for Keri, what does mental health look like for you? Like, what does that mean to you?
Mental health to me means doing whatever is necessary and utilizing any tool that I've learned about, forcing myself to do so that I can get out of survival mode and into thriving mode. That's what mental health looks like for me, and that is a constant check-in. I wake up, how am I feeling? What do I need? before I think about what anyone else needs of me, like that freaking phone, I'm like, what do I need? Am I tired? Do I feel the pain today of my loss? What do I need? Do I need to take a walk before do I need some green tea? Do I need, So for me, mental health is an ongoing self-check. It's an ongoing look within. Ask yourself the questions you wish someone would ask you and do something about it. Use the tools, use whatever resources. Put yourself in position to win each day. I literally break my mental health down into quarters of the day, to be honest. But if you could start with each day, what would bring me joy? And then 2, mental health for me meant learning the difference between what would bring me joy momentarily but would damage my joy down the line, and what actually brings me sustainable, joy. Am I doing something that's actually hurting me, but I think it feels good in the moment? Or am I doing something that's actually helping me tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow? So that's what mental health is for me.
That's beautiful. Right, what about you, bro?
It's a really good question. Mental health for me can come in many different forms, and it's really hard to identify because we all struggle with our own character defects or oppression from systematic racism or from the foods that we eat, right? So I think, like Keri was saying, it really comes down to you saving yourself and holding yourself accountable. As much as you want to blame someone else, you really got to do a mental check-in, and you have to find your boundaries, your triggers, because everyone's different, just like everyone's diet is different. So it's really important to really learn yourself and spend time with yourself. Like for me, I spent 7 years in China, and that was like my wilderness experience. I was able to find out what makes me tick, what I don't like, what I do like, what type of man am I turning into, what type of man do I want to be. Especially when you grow up in the spotlight, a lot of your business is forced in, and you have to deal with that and the oppression from the depression and PTSD that comes along with dealing with the world, the pressure of the world, right? And that's when you just have to just go back home and give it all to God and just, go back to your roots and your foundation, really, because keeping your thoughts in the captivity of Christ really is what, keeps me sane every day. And, taking out of religious content, but really just focusing on keeping your brain where you need to be and work a little bit on yourself every day, like Keri was saying. That's really going to help take you to the next level, because you can't go to 10th level with level 1 steps, habits per se. So for me, yeah.
It's crazy. We were just talking about like the different steps and different levels where, mental health kind of starts in the beginning. When you say beginning, that's at home, right? And of course, being African American, we don't talk about that in the family, what that looks like, or how that aligns to you as you grow, right? And I'm throwing a question back to you guys up here, but you guys work in the mental health space. So from that standpoint, how does it look to you guys?
When I think of it, I think of my relationship to what's going on in my mind, because whatever is here, and there can be moments where I don't have a great relationship with what's going on, and so I will jump out of my body or do anything to not be in the present moment. So when I evaluate my mental health, or when I'm asking anybody else, what really feels true for you, I'm thinking about the relationship that I have to what is actually true without needing to make it something that is not. How much can I be present with what is and move from that place of reality versus idealism.
We keep creating a false perception ourselves a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think for me, kind of one of the things that I try to always remember that it's okay not to be okay. And I think it's taking that one step to kind of first make sure your feet are grounded, but then take that one step to kind of get yourself out of the place that you are, because in many situations it's just temporary. So it's kind of figuring out what it is that's for you inside personally. Whether it's working out, dieting, just being around friends, just kind of thinking about what is it that helps me tick. And again, just being okay with not being okay in a particular season of life.
So I'm glad you brought it off. We just talked about that again as well, right? It's okay not to be okay. So like, how do we do that? Like, for people that may not understand what that is, like, how do we make ourselves feel comfortable to say it's okay not to be okay?
I think from the perspective of realizing that you're not alone. You know, it's said that 1 out of 4 adults is living with a mental health diagnosis, whether it's, you know, schizophrenia, bipolar, major depression, PTSD, anxiety, you name it. So just kind of understanding that, you know, looking at this room quickly, you know, 60, 70, 80 people, you know, at least 20 people in here, you know, if you look at statistics, are dealing with stuff very similar to, you know, what you are. So kind of understanding that, hey, you know, I'm not alone. There is support systems out there. There is, you know, family, friends, you know, entertainers, you know, community leaders that are all dealing with the same thing, just in different ways. And I think that kind of brings the acceptance with your mental health. You know, it's just like anything. You know, once you can accept it, then you can really work on, you know, your recovery, whatever that means to you.
And I kind of want to go back to what was said earlier about it starting in the home. How many of you here have ever heard the term reparenting your inner child? So when it comes from talking about starting in the home, oftentimes we think back to different stigmas and stereotypes. Like, I can say that in my home because everybody's experience is different. You know, the Black experience is not monolithic, but that's a whole different conversation. I think that, you know, when I think back to my mother and my father, even though they lived in separate households, I kind of still had the same set of rules. Like, you can't cry, or it's not that serious, or it's not that deep, or, you know, you can put this away and pray on it. You can drink some ginger ale. You can take a nap. Like there's ginger ale. Like there's different methods, right? Quote unquote methods. But I think that when it comes to reparenting your inner child, it's really important to think back to those experiences and acknowledge your triggers and align that to where you are today, to think about what it means to give your inner child, give your inner teenager, give your inner adolescent that attention, that coddling, and that hug and that warmth that they really deserve. So I'm going to start on this side of the panel. When you hear about reparenting your inner child, what comes to mind, and what tools do you think that, you know, younger children, younger Black children and children of color could have used to really help formulate these conversations that we're having today when it comes to mental health? I know that was a lot.
Well, I think you said a lot of it. I think, you know, the younger generation, I think it's, in essence, you know, you're reparenting your inner child, but also reparenting your parents, you know, and your grandparents and your generations. You know, my wife, you know, Dominican, you know, and when we talk about, you know, mental health in her family, you know, it's the same thing of, you know, don't talk about it. You're fine. Go pray. Go to sleep. You're okay. Where, you know, it's educating now her parents and her older siblings and, you know, the older cousins of, hey, like, this is a very real thing. Mental health is a very real issue. You know, it's not just, you know, something that you're going through. It's not just something that, you know, happens. You know, so really just kind of re-educating your community. And I think that that's something that we as a whole do a horrible job at in any community, of educating what are the real issues surrounding mental health. You know, how do we deal with it? You know, because I think once we can kind of figure that out, which I don't know that we can, but starting the conversation is the first place to go, and not being afraid to go to our, you know, older friends and family and say, hey, listen, this is really what we're dealing with, and try to build that understanding.
I think the biggest tool that we have in reparenting, whatever we want to call it, is the curiosity that a child always had. Knowing that you know nothing, allowing time and space to be the truth of what it is. I think often the reason that there's not a space for poor relationships with mental health is we need to fill space with something, or some words, or some encouragement, or something. We got to fill space, and we got to keep from wasting time. So we don't see those things as opportunities. And so when we have space and time and allow curiosity to be in the space and time, you can actually just see what are we here for in this moment. That's what the child just wants to know that socket is a thing. It doesn't care about being electrocuted. Like, you have to invoke to get every answer right on a test or fill space with something that didn't belong there. So I think the biggest tool is curiosity, but that comes from having a better relationship with time and space, not as a limiting thing, but as an opportunity to explore and expand.
Keri?
I know the question had to do with reparenting, but can you toss it to me?
Yes, I'm gonna condense it. So when it comes to reparenting your inner child, what does that mean to you, and what tools do you think are necessary to do so?
Thank you. I think I can only speak, I'm not a professional, I can speak from my vantage point and my experience. In therapy is where I learned how many untruths about the world, about familial structure, about what healthy love looks and operates like, about friendship, about so many things. I inherited some of them. Some I told myself based on my juvenile mind. I was processing or attempting to process something that I was witnessing or experiencing or seeing, and I got it wrong, okay? I was, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on. But I think for me, it's a scary thing a lot of times to go back to the child you. It's a very scary thing. It's the reason why a lot of people won't go back to therapy, because that's usually where pardon my French, that's where the shit be going. It's where it begins, and then we can get to the adult, So I think for me, it was getting over that fear of going to therapy and understanding, okay, I'm not my child self anymore, but there is so much of me that believes things about the world as if I'm still 4, or as if I'm still 10, depending on, the circumstance that I'm looking at. So it was not being afraid, it was being okay with being that vulnerable to express things that happened to me and to listen back to his and her perspective, because I have multiple therapists in different cities, so that right, so I think for me it was overcoming the fear of, okay, let's get back to little Keri, let me be her for a moment, let me sit with her sometimes. I have to now teach her new truths and helpful beliefs about the world, and again, those things I listed, familiar structure and all of these things, love, and what does this look like, what does that look like? I now have to re-explore the world with that same childlike curiosity that you had, that you were speaking of, and figure out what feels true to my spirit, what's authentic to my environment and my own experiences at this point. So bridging that inner child to your adult self, it ain't easy work. I know it sounds fun and surface, but I can't stress to you how much pain is possibly underlying in your being, in your body. Some of the chronic or physical pain that we have has to do with our childhood traumas. And so, yeah, bridging that gap, it's scary, it's painful, it's tearful work, but continue through that. And that's just the advice that I can give, because, yeah, you just don't realize, you go through life and everyone's telling you to be a grown-up, be an adult, be mature about that. And you're like, but I feel triggered, like, I wouldn't call myself a child, but like, I feel that same discomfort and disconnection from myself, yes, great word, that I felt when I was like 9. So you do revert to your immature self until you learn healthier ways, but it's just, for me, that was, so eye-opening. So eye-opening.
What's yours?
Yeah, that was deep, Keri. I was with you. It starts with embarrassment. Stigma of the Black community. It starts with oppression of being, you know, because we've had, as a community, we've had so much stacked up on us in adversity. We have so much on us to be great, but the tools and the resources are there to be great. So it comes to a point where you draw a line where it's like, well, you have to save yourself. You know, children, you know, it's impossible to please God without having a childlike faith. You have to believe that God is, and that is the reward of those who diligently seek Him. So it's like, the problem is kids are not in the same space. It's like how, you know, my brother or my family member, someone that's so close to me that I trust, would be an incest perpetrator. That's the problem right there. But you know, you can't fault people because people weren't born with the right tools, I would say. But I would say they're there in their household. You don't necessarily have the tools because the kid doesn't come with a church maker. So people have to do the best they can to raise their kid the best way they know how. So I get it. But a lot of us I'm fortunate to have a mother that instilled some good disciplines in me, that I was able to take these tools with me in life and use them to better myself to get me to where I'm at today. So and like Keri was saying, you really got to look at the trauma that you had before you got you were thrown into the real world, before you took out of your home, before foster homes or group homes, or being in the group at a young age and having that type of worldly exposure at a young age, so you're forced to grow up and you're forced to have these disciplines of the world. But unfortunately, it's just the way the world was and the way the world is built. It sucks because you look back, and if you don't really take the time to identify these things, you will be a lonely, hurtful, miserable person. And I told myself I would never become that, because I'm loved and I'm going to continue to let my light shine. And I'm going to look at my testimony and everything that I've been through and be vulnerable and be transparent in my walk and my existence here on earth. So every day is a work in progress for me. I just have to make sure I keep my mind in the right place. So it's a constant mental check. But it starts with looking at your childhood, because there's still hurt and pain that I have with. My mom called me the other day, and I'll be quick, but the conversation, she was telling me about some stuff that my brother did. I don't approve of his ways and actions of life and how we deal with people, nor do I deal, with my sister and with her actions. But I think they're very disrespectful and they're ungodly, and they're not, especially my mom has been through so much in her life, with domestic violence and stuff like that. So I feel like this part of her life needs to be peace. But whether she called me, whether she knew it or not, her calling me caused trauma for me, because now I have to think about my brother molesting me. I have to think about my sister selling me out, going to work with, some people I consider not my friends, so that's real life trauma that I still have to deal with. So I find myself isolated on an island, because I would rather be around people that really are my family, and it may necessarily be my own flesh and blood. So,
I think I want to add to that. I think family is important, right? Especially in the beginning, right? Family is something that's very, very important, and we forget that plays a major role in our consistent way of being mentally strong, right? I know for me, like, my father walked out with me, my mom, when I was 3 years old, right? So my mom was always like, yo, that's a part of your family, like, that's something genetic, where your family doesn't know how to handle hard situations. So when hard situations come around, the first thing is to run away, right? But we all know that in life, there's so many ways, so many hard situations that come our way, and we need to have people to lean on. If it's not blood, then it's your brothers or your sisters, So I think even this kind of little small conversation, it's very, very important that we look to our family and our friends and be there for them, even when you think they don't need it. Like, if you think that they feel some type of way, or think that they maybe feel some type of way, check in on them. Like, don't wait. Like, it's our responsibility to make sure that our people are good, and that's our blood, that's our people around us. And it's important that we make sure that, we just don't take that for granted, because, like we said, like, it's already a stigma for mental health. Like, that's already something that we don't do well in. And it starts in the home, right? So if y'all learn anything from tonight, if we continue to go, like, just make sure that family and friends are very, very important to the growth of us as we continue to grow.
Can I interject there?
Go
It
ahead.
seemed like you were done. I was
Yeah,
quick, I
go
know.
ahead. Tag in.
But it's not only our job to check in on people, it's also our job as the individual who's experiencing lows to also be honest about what you're feeling. It goes back to that question, how are you? When people ask me how I'm doing, I don't give the formal, quick fire, good, exactly, I'm fine, I'm good, hey, great, thanks, how are you? And and then we continue to, no, I actually use that as a moment to check in. Exactly. But no one would know, because we are so good at masking and being these versions of perfect, whatever your version of perfect looks like. We're so used to masking that in our everyday life, at work, and in our at family barbecues, and all these other places where we should actually, especially with family and friends, we should actually be able to fall apart. But a lot of times we don't give the honest answer, and they don't know to even come and rescue or give us the word of encouragement that we need, or to tell us. We just like, oh, everything's good, you know. And in the Black community, I know for a fact, my family and be keeping all kind of secrets.
Oh, I know for sure.
No, and I'm always checking. I'm like, why? We could have prayed for her. Why didn't she tell anybody? Now she's gone.
People were afraid to talk, you know, because you get discredited, you get humiliated, and all the things that come along with that.
This goes back to want to be super strong. Like it goes back to what you said about it's okay not to be okay.
And you gotta let people know how they can be of service to you. Because there are people, I hope you have curated a tribe that would be there for you if and when you need them to.
And I would take that even a step further. I would say that it's okay to check out on people. You know, if people are, you know, it's a lot harder when it's your mother, your father, your brother, and your sister. But if you're in a season and people aren't good for your mental health, you know, that's the quickest way for your mental health to go down even further. You know, so ending relationships obviously is never an easy thing, but sometimes it's a very necessary thing to do. So I think it's important to remember that as well, and don't be ashamed of that. You know, hey, at the end of the day, you lay your head on your pillow, no one else. So you have to do what's best for you in that season of life. If that means checking out on someone, you know, unfortunately, you know, if you go through educating them and telling them the truth, and that, hey, if it's still not a right fit, you know, gotta get to stepping.
And also piggybacking off of you, like, I think that everybody said something that's like a common denominator here, and that's the importance of setting boundaries when it comes to your mental health. And I feel like oftentimes people don't recognize that no is a complete sentence. Like, hey, can you do this? No. Like, no.
It sounds kind of harsh, but ways to do it.
Yeah, I found so many nice ways to say no. Because
Yeah.
in my position,
Give me one.
what's one?
No, thank you.
But yeah, that's an easy one. It's more like, let me see how I feel. And then I'll double back. I'm not feeling it
You gotta
today.
gauge
You
your
gotta-
feeling.
Yeah, it's a feeling, but I might know that I ain't going. Or I'm not calling, or I'm not doing that. But that's my kind way of, there are so many kind ways. Another one that I use is, what is it? It'll come back to me. I just got it. I was like, there's two that I always use. So if I ever give it to one of y'all, just know she ain't showing up.
She said no.
This is what you call some good media training right here.
And it's important to have those boundaries, because even like for people like myself who work 9 to 5s, like even when you put your away message, like when you're away on vacation, that should mean that you're away on vacation. You can kindly put, like, I put in my notifications all the time, like, I'm out of office, do not text me or call me unless it's urgent. I know it's not gonna be, like, don't. The company will not go under fire if I don't answer a Slack for like 3 days. It's okay. Like, unplug, be sure to set those boundaries. And that can be with anybody. It can be with a parent, it can be with a friend, it can be with a significant other. I tell my boyfriend all the time, I love you, but give me like 3 days to like recharge.
Oh, son.
Yeah, I know. Like, but some
Girl, told me 3 days.
like, but sometimes, honestly, like 3 days to somebody else may be just what people need. Like 3 days might be just enough to recharge. You might just need those 72 hours. I like my 72
We have no
hours.
judge for this long.
I like my 72 hours.
What do y'all think
We're not
about it?
gonna judge. We're not gonna judge.
I like my 72 hours.
All right.
For me, 72 hours or 24 hours, or maybe it's just an extra long lunch break. Like sometimes I just need a second to just turn off, because I know that everybody in this room at some point has felt like they're always on go, whether they're always showing up for somebody. Exactly, like they're always like answering phone calls or showing up to Or maybe someone's blowing up their phone and they're saying, oh, I need you, I need you, I need you. What about you needing time for yourself? Like, you need to step away from it. My phone is always on Do Not Disturb. That's why when people call me, it takes them like 3 times to get through to me, because I know that I will fall down the rabbit hole of social media and answering people's emails and answering people's slacks. Like, sometimes you just need to just be. And there's nothing wrong with setting those boundaries. Like, healthily communicate. Like, I'm not just gonna ghost my boyfriend for 3 days and be like, oops, babe, I'm sorry. Like, I healthily communicate, like, I need a couple days just to get my mind right. Because I know that if I'm not correct, I can't show up in my relationship. I can't show up for my friends. I can't show up for my family. I need to show up for myself before I show up for other people. So I need to be able to take that second to recharge a battery. You can't put your phone on the charger and expect it to go from 0 to 105 minutes. That's just not gonna happen. You need to leave your phone alone, close out all the apps, put it on low charge mode or whatever, and just let it do its thing. And then when it's at 100%, you can use it again. That's just how I work.
Hey, I'm with it. Hey. But I know we're talking about family, we're talking about other things around, but I guess my next question for you guys, we start with Frederick. How do we build community? Like, how do we continue to build more awareness in our community? Like, what are some things that we can do, like, individually, as a group, to continue to build more awareness around mental health and make it a common thing to talk about, and not just a made thing?
It sounds cliche, but just do it. Just, take one step and, start that community, that one conversation with someone, and then build up that communication. Social media, everyone's on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. Post about mental health on there, talk about it in your friends groups, talk about it, at work, not be afraid of it. I think one of the biggest things in any panel I've ever been on, in any mental health discussion, is we don't do enough talking about it because we're afraid of the stigma behind it. We're afraid of, is our job gonna fire us? Are our friends gonna stop being our friends? Someone gonna look at us weird? Don't be afraid to just put it out there. I listened to someone talk who I really respect, and one day he said, wear it as a badge of honor. And I think that that's true. Not be afraid, just get out there and be like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Because I think as we do that, that one person that was closed off, you might spark something, and then that they might say something, and then they might spark something in someone else where they may say something, so we kind of keep, look at it as a ball rolling downhill. As it keeps picking up speed, we'll eventually be all over the place. People feel more comfortable with it.
Crystal?
I think talking about it is important. I also think that talking about it isn't everybody's language. And, you asked about building community, it starts with yourself. I have people that know how physically active I am, and they can tell when something is going on, but it's not going to come out because of dissociation. And so they'll go ride with me on the bike for 20 miles. You don't have to talk about it, but eventually they know that that's what it takes for me to move it through my system. And so I think also it's understanding that somebody's mental health awareness isn't always for you to know, but it can be for you to support if you take the time to understand the languages that this person communicates and moves through things the best. That's what I think. I think a lot of people can talk, and a lot of people talk and say nothing.
Or do.
We'll do a whole lot of texting and checking in, calling and checking in, and the next day you're surprised because people have learned to manipulate with your words. And so if you want people to be pushed away, I actually use words when I don't want to push people away. I know how to do that. But if you stop me, if you say, oh, let's go to bike ride, or let's do this, and I'm not even thinking about that, or we're going to go on this 20-mile hike, you've shown up for me. And so I think that small thing of understanding my language, showing up in my language allows me to show up for other people because my cup is full. And then when those things happen, it makes other people feel who have other things that are going on that are not necessarily verbal because they can't even formulate sentences. Makes it feel like they can express in the way that they want to express as well. But sometimes it's not for you as the person supporting to know all the details. Sometimes it's for you to create great space for someone to be safe enough to explore the things within themselves.
Keri? Keri, baby.
Okay, so I'm the artist. My story is being told right now. I was the kid in school who had a really short attention span. Can you give me the question again, please? I get 3, that's 2. Leave me alone.
No, Kayla, how do we build more awareness through our community through mental health?
I think they've raised, I also didn't know the question was gonna come back this way, to be honest. I think they've raised some really good points, being very observant of the people who you care about, and also sharing on social media. I honestly don't know what I would add to that. Our community.
I mean, they're doing pretty good now.
I was gonna say, it's happening.
They got Archie out there, but I'm just being honest. Like, no, he wrote a lot of our songs, a lot of beats great records, but, you know, I saw Charlotte, man, you know, we over there having a real conversation. When was people gonna start to hold him accountable, or the people that was around him? You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, Jason Lee finally stood up, you know, to Chris Stokes for me. Who in the culture is gonna stand up for Raz B? I didn't do nothing wrong, you know what I'm saying? But I'm the guy to get outcast. So it's like, when do you, like, who's gonna be bold and brave enough to say, you know what, I got your back? Because when I needed help, nobody was there. People making songs about me, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I rarely even come out to things because I feel the stigma. You know, people know what I walked through because it was very blatant. And when I'm crying for help, nobody was there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when is somebody gonna come out in the hip hop culture, rap culture, just stop talking about killing each other, which we hear about it, that's starting to change, right? But when are they gonna stop calling females bitches? I mean, maybe you can say for the bedroom if you want to, you know, little freaky deaky stuff like that, but come on, you know what I'm saying? We just gotta start holding each other accountable, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure we all know somebody, and it starts right here today in the room, right? It's like modern day church. When we got these little rappers, or upcoming rappers, it's like being like a modern day prophet, right? So it's like we have to be accountable of what it is that we're talking about, you know, whether it's lustfulness, we're glorifying this. You know, I used to say in B2K's music, we wanted to try to keep, it was still kind of lustful for a little bit, and we were hypersexualized. I know it's not gonna look back, but our music was still clean to where the whole family could listen to the music and didn't necessarily have to think about the music. So it really starts with us looking the man in the mirror, you know? So really, I'm proud of us, but we just gotta probably do a little bit more so we can pass it on to our generation. So I know it's a lot of the younger kids now are vegans and vegetarians and they're more health conscious, which I think is important. So
You do make a great point as it pertains to the culture, or the subculture of our entertainment industry. There are a lot of secrets, there's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of evil, you know, that people cover up. Because everyone feels like their life, their career, their bag is on the line. And no one will come forward and speak up about things or defend those that are actual victims. You know, it happens all the time, and it is, you made beautiful points that I never would have even thought of. We have, those that have any level of influence and power, we all do, and I was gonna say, a mother has influence over her children. You know, a teacher has influence over her class. It doesn't always mean that, oh, I need more followers so that I can, no. You may have influence over your friend group. It may be 2 or 3 people. It may be 20 people. You may mentor kids, or you may, you know, you may have placed yourself in a position, or you have natural influence. And these conversations that are being had, like, I was, earlier today, one of my good friends and stylist was, we were talking about online and the climate of comment sections, right? Where she said, she raised a point, she said, you know, I just don't feel like half the people that speak the way they do about and to others online, she's like, I find it so hard. She's like, maybe I can just see the best in people. She said, but I find it so hard to believe that they're actually like that in real life. She's like, we pass them every day. I mean, everyone is online, you know, but she's like, why has it become so okay for people to speak the way they speak to people, other humans online. It's like it's a nasty, I mean, sure, we all love sarcasm, but then there's ones that cross the line of respect and compassion.
Code of ethics, right?
Yeah, it should be some compassion. You don't know what that one comment, how that could be stored in someone's subconscious. They may forget about it consciously, but now you've implanted this possible potential belief about themselves that was just a comment on a page 3 years ago, and now they've inherited this and carry that. So we got to be more careful as individuals with what we're saying and how we are approaching strangers, be it online, because that's the new streets. Half the stuff you say online, you wouldn't say to a woman in the street. You get slapped. You get hurt, you get run over, you get shot, you wouldn't say half, so we've got to behave a little differently too.
No, I agree. And I think, it goes back to the individual power that we all have when it comes to people with the confidence. Like, not everybody has the same confidence I have, right? So I can't assume that what I say to them may not hurt their feelings. Now, maybe being honest, but I think even myself, like, we have to be very conscious of like how we motivate people, right? My sense of motivation, I'm a parent, my mom know I can be very direct, but it may not, it may not work for everyone, you know what I mean? So to your point, Keri, I think that's something that we have to work on as well to help build this stigma. It actually kind of starts like in this room, right? So what we take from this is like, let's really walk out the room saying that, hey, how do we impact our community on the small level? Because eventually it'll slowly build bigger, but it's focused on the small, like your individual friend groups, your individual family, right? People that are around you, the gathering spot, like our team. Like, it's important that we continue to motivate each other, not just from a success standpoint. We're all about getting that money, making more money, but the more money you make, the more problems come your way, right? So if you don't have a mental mindset to say, hey, I got millions of dollars in the bank, but my mind is not mentally there. Now you lose all that money, so now you're back to square one. You know what I mean? So I think we gotta remember that as we grow, as we mature, that our mental is as important as our success. But you guys did bring up a point that I wanted you to bring up about the music industry. And of course, there's been a lot of toxic conversation about how toxic the music industry is for individuals that are in it, like you, still in it, they're thriving, for individuals that are still trying to get up there. From your perspective, what's the best way to prepare yourself or help yourself mentally as you grow or try to get to that success? I know it's a loaded question, but whoever pop it up first.
We started at a young age, right? We all started at a young age.
Yeah,
And plus, like, now, right? Y'all been through all different things. Y'all came through, you know what I'm saying? So
prepare. Okay. Going to get your therapist ASAP. You're gonna need that. You're gonna need an accountant.
Good lawyer, that's your best friend.
Good lawyer, one that you can really trust. If you're in our community, I would venture to say a black one.
You gotta have a really good friend. Somebody, you gotta have like a really good.
Yeah.
Of course, words and wisdom we can share about getting into business, but it's really making sure that your foundation is dope. Whether it's your trainer that's been working with you, when you would have no money, they really believe you. Because the people that want to help you be successful, it takes a village to raise a child. They're going to invest in you, their time. So I think, identifying some of those people around you early on.
Yeah. And honestly, meditation. I know that's odd, maybe, of an answer, but if I had the discernment that I gained from meditating when I was first starting out, I could have avoided a lot of things. I could have bypassed having to fight certain people, deal with certain people in business. I could have bypassed a lot of BS if I were in tune and my discernment and my intuition was stronger. So I would say anybody joining this industry,
But you know what the craziest part is? We got to go through something, right? Because billion-dollar company behind you, put millions behind you on marketing, your face is everywhere. Thank God I never got arrogant, but like your face is everywhere. People are praising you like a false god. You know, people come and say, oh my God, nice to meet you. I say, oh, praise to God, nice to meet you, because not got nothing to do with me. I'm just happy that people see the light in you, you know what I'm saying? So I got that out the way really quick because I'm nothing without you. Most importantly, I'm a servant, so I'm always going to be transparent in front of the people. But I think you have to go through life because no one actually can really prepare you for like, yo, what fame about to be like? What $100,000 check about to be like? You know what I'm saying? Like, true. You gonna run through that? What, 300 bands? I spent that in 6 months.
It's kind of like what they say. That's true, because like with the athletes, what they say to them is like, unfortunately, yeah, you might go through a situation, you might blow a few bags for the first couple of years as you're, you know what I'm saying? So some people, I guess, you really do learn by touching the fire. You could tell them, hey, it's hot, it's really hot right there, don't go over there.
Then it goes back to the people. Then it goes back to the people. Like, for example, your manager's been with you for all these years. You know what I'm saying? You have people that's gonna ride with you. You know, and you hot when you're not hot. You know what I'm saying?
But even then, you don't know until you ain't hot.
Facts.
There's always a test that comes where their loyalty is shown, but prior to them reaching that edge, you don't really know, especially if like I was in my first deal at 17, but I was in that group for 14. So that group, even though we weren't famous, we were signed, but I was still in the business, yeah. So when I was young, I didn't know character, I didn't know anybody's loyalty. I just knew, okay, this is who's in my immediate environment. This is who I'm rolling with.
These are people
for
that we
now,
want to trust.
who I think I can trust,
Gotcha.
you know. But I think he's got a point. Like no matter what we say, even though I think we've given some really good insight,
For sure.
no matter what we say, there are going to be some areas that you're going to have to feel out on your own, and maybe some mistakes you'll have to make because we do learn great from our mistakes.
I think it all goes back into just the foundation, right? Not even just the music industry, but any industry that you're in, that there's importance to have a solid foundation as you navigate success, right? As you navigate what your career looks like, you know, you have to have an individual that you trust to go down that road because success comes with a lot of negative things that come that way, right? Where you may have a hiccup, you may fail, but you gotta have that person say, hey, I'm with you the whole entire way, right? And I think that's important for not just the music industry, but all industries or all corporations. Like, if you work, doesn't matter what it is, like, make sure that you have a solid foundation to keep you afloat and make sure that not only are you successful, like, again, that you're mentally successful. I think that's the main thing that it allows us to make sure that we're being very mentally focused on ourselves and our minds, that we continue to grow and get better.
I agree completely, and I think that something that we talked about earlier that I kind of latched onto was the conversation about social media. And I think that nowadays we can't really talk about mental health without talking about social media. Be it, you know, somebody making that one comment that may, you know, be embedded in somebody's mind, or somebody may find a tribe online, whether it's like, you know, Black Girl in All or Black Mental Health Matters. Like, there's so many different social media pages, and I honestly believe that social media can be a tool or a weapon, depending upon how you use it.
Yeah, well, the phone is like God. Like, I be like grabbing my phone sometimes. I remember before I pray, I be like, journey for me.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I start looking, I'm there.
It's out of habit. It's very much out of habit. Like, I can say that I'm somebody who grabs my phone first thing in the morning. I don't want to. I'm getting better at it. But it's something that, you know, we kind of just jerk towards doing, whether it's like, you know, we check our Twitter feeds, or we check how many likes we got on an Instagram post, or, you know, how even like people who work in paid socials, how's our ad doing? But I wanna like move to this side of the panel as well and start with you guys. How would you say that the relationship between social media and mental health, or should I say mental wellness, has really evolved over the years?
I think it's been negative overall. I think that, you know, before we had immediate access to everything, you know, there wasn't the comment sections, you know, or there was, but it was a lot harder to actually see.
Yeah, message boards.
You know, so you actually had to go digging to find the comments, where now it's, yo, did you see what such and such said? Or, you know, it's posted all over, you know, TMZ, all that stuff. So, you know, I agree with what you just said, though. I think looking at it from, you know, you need to make a decision of, is it going to be a blessing or is it going to be a curse? I think, we can influence a generation with one comment, whether it's as parents, whether it's as, just leaders in our industry. So I think, me personally in my life, I've made a very conscious decision that social media is going to be a tool for me. I'm going to use it if I need to reach out for support, if I need to, advertise my business or whatever the case is. And I don't even look at the comment sections. Because you're going to find, for every good comment, you're going to find 15 negative comments, backhanded comments where someone's, trying to give you a comment, but they're throwing shade at the same time. It's making that conscious decision to use it how it's going to work for you, and at the same time not being afraid to say, you know what, I need to deactivate a little bit. I need to kind of back up from it because, there is a dark side of it. So I think overall, I think it's increased mental health issues, but I think, if we use it the right way, it could be a tool in sort of erasing, some of the stigma and mental health challenges.
I honestly believe most people aren't healthy enough to be on social media because they don't know who they are. And when they don't know who they are, you get this opportunity to look for validation, praise, and wish-wash, whatever someone's saying. So I think people need to be healthy enough, have a sense of awareness, a sense of groundedness before engaging in this crowd of people, looking for them to praise you, but also like forgetting that you're opening the door for being blamed or being outcast or whatever. If we can just release the need of naming your value, because I know that I'm valuable from social media, then you can interact with it from a place of wholeness. I think most people are interacting with it from a void, and whatever comes in that void is what shows up. So I tend to use social media if it is an assignment for me to say a thing on social media, that is exactly what it is that I will do. Otherwise, I don't run my social media because at one point people's DMs were DMing me their life stories and they were not asking for permission to be in my space. And so I decided that I will create avenues for people to engage with me in a way that honors my boundaries. And I just think knowing that, knowing how you engage with anything, knowing how you engage with the people here, you need to have a sense of your groundedness before, and I don't think most people are grounded. There's addictive personality traits that need to be handled before, it's like sending an alcoholic into a liquor store. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we gotta work on alcoholism first. And I don't think that's talked about. So we blame it on social media, but truthfully, there's no actual intention on why you got on social media. It's a need to feed a thing.
It's made for business, but
That's how I see it. That's how it comes to me. And then people say, well, did you see this? I don't know what you're talking about. But it's just inundated what somebody else wants you to see when, like for me, the day doesn't start till the birds start. They don't start, we don't start. So, like having something that's real life and recognizing that social media is one thing. There are a million other things happening. So there just needs to be a healthy level of engagement, in my opinion.
No, thank you for that. And before we begin to allow the crowd have any questions, for Freddy and Crystal, can you kind of go in depth? I know you guys, you have a foundation, you work in mental health. Can we go a little bit in depth with like what you guys do in mental health before we end?
So Clubhouse Atlanta and Clubhouse International, which was started by Fountain House in New York City, we work to provide support for individuals who are 18 years and older, so adults that are living with severe mental illness. So, what we believe in the very sort of basic sense is community. That when you build community and you give someone the support that they need to go out in their everyday lives, whether it's work, school, housing. We help them build the toolbox that they need to, deal with social media, to deal with, the pressures of everyday life. So we are a program that, we have over 300 locations in 33 different countries. So, we are in all different communities, all different ways of life. But again, what's unique to every program is that we really believe in that sense of community and building strong and meaningful and powerful relationships. Say that again? Severe is, the new way it's defined is any mental illness. PTSD, anxiety. It used to be, the big three of, major depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, but now it's kind of expanded. But again, it's just building relationships, building community, having advocates, having people who are there to support you, having people who, will hold you accountable, not necessarily because you're not accountable, but just to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And that's why Clubhouse Atlanta and sort of the Clubhouse movement, which has been around for 70 plus years, exists today in so many communities, because it's a proven concept of build that village behind you, and then you can kind of have that support team behind you to go out there and conquer the world.
Beautiful.
That was dope.
The question of what do you do always just throws me off.
I don't know what I do.
No, I do, but it's more of who I am. This is who I am all the time. Interesting enough, I started in the entertainment industry and people actually hired me to be that person for them. I did all of New York to Atlanta tours because there was just so much that was, there's the person that went on stage who I generally never met, and there's the person that I met in the green room that had to become the person that was on stage. So I have a few clients. I don't work as much in that industry anymore. It is intense. It's intense, it's very fast. So I also do the same thing in the corporate arena. I show up as myself from Fortune 500 companies to nonprofit organizations, and I witness people and I believe them. I also do that with my private clients. I do the same exact thing. So there's just different avenues to the medicine, which is my care organization, Two Inches Beyond Black, because we go into different Black organizations and actually offer well-being in a way that is not honestly whitewashed, and setting whatever is present and recognizing that once we drop below what we think is Blackness, the thing that we run away from, that's where the medicine and the healing is. And so we work with organizations to provide that to their employees. And I always say, I show up where the people are. And that's what I do.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we do want to open up the floor for anyone that have, we have mics in the back. Right here. So please, if you have a question, if you just make your way over there. If you raise your hand, please go to the mic. It's right there for me. I'll take a couple questions for you. Yeah, it's right there behind the pillar.
Here.
Sorry, guys. We'll start from the left and we'll tag you back and forth. Did they? Yeah, y'all gonna Terry Keri? Is the mic on, sir? Mic check. Awesome.
First of all, just salute everyone that's in the room, whether you came to be a spectator or you're actually going through something in life. The mere fact that you're here to speak about having such, how can I say this, deep in wellness that we need to have, it's already a salute to you guys. So my question is, how do you power down your mental chaos? I grew up without a father, watched my cousin get murdered in New Orleans. I've been Iraq twice. Been through a divorce with a female, gone through a divorce with a male. So it's like, how do you power down all of the, I call it like a stock market, the things, your trauma, the situation, the cuss out, the blowouts, the situations, the mom or the daddy. How do you say, I'm gonna take a moment, and Ms. Keri mentioned the meditation, but if you try to stop and focus and you can't even turn off the constant visuals that's playing before your face. If the noise may be muted, but the silence is blasting in your brain. So how do you mentally power down?
Real quick, I want to hear from everybody, but I would say when I have those moments, I have to tell myself, it's not that serious. It'll take 1 second to talk to your life, as my mother always said, because I have a bad temper. I wanted to punch a man through a glass and almost lost my life, you know what I'm saying? Because I went that far. So I think knowing how, if you love your life, you gotta really say it's not that serious. I seen something in the news, dude just won $10 million in lottery, but he killed his girlfriend because she was texting another dude. I would have been like, next. Let me talk about it. So, but I want to learn some skills today.
Something I always say, because I get that question a lot, I say make it bigger and have the space so that it can get as big as possible, because it doesn't go away until it gets big. Often the question is, how can I put it in the closet? And things in the closet don't do very well in the closet. And so what I always say, whether someone is 6 years old or 76, I say make it bigger. Match that energy, because until you match that energy, it's not going to move through your body. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and more closeted and more closeted. And then once you make it bigger, just like a child when they get over their temper tantrum, they go to sleep. But they have to make it bigger.
What do you mean by make it bigger? You mean confront it, or
No, I mean,
what do you mean?
so for some people, like if I'm talking to a child, they'll kind of mute their body expression. That's mostly what most people need to do, is put it through their body expression. And I say, what does it sound like? Where is it located? Somebody will say, well, somebody has an issue with lying. I'll be like, where do you feel it when you're lying? I talk to a 76 or 30-year-old just like this, where do you feel it? What sound does it make? Make it bigger, make it bigger. Do we need to run around? Do we need to do this? Because a lot of sessions are actually very physical. How can we move it through your body in the biggest way possible? How can you make it as dramatic as possible? I'm going to give you 4 minutes to make it as dramatic as possible. When we're done, we're done. Do we need 4 more minutes? Do we need to take a nap? But I give you the space to make it as big and as loud and as obnoxious as possible, because often that's what you were never allowed to do, because you need to get it together. You need to go be presentable. You need to be a respectable Negro, whatever it is. Like, you just need the space to make it bigger and be as obnoxious, and then
In other words, you need to get it out, and I like that. That's
Fully address it in all of its, I would say splendor, in all of its ugliness. Fully address it, I guess, physically, emotionally, verbally, whatever it
it's gotta
takes.
get real ugly.
It's gotta get
You're not
ugly.
gonna get cute by powering down. It ain't cute.
You gotta add voice, volume to the voice of that situation. As I'm gathering, that's what you.
And I would say this, it's not going to answer your question, but I would throw something back at you. You mentioned 4 or 5, horrible things that you've been through, but you're standing there telling us about it right now. So you have some tools within you to already do that, right? So I think it's finding out, letting yourself deal with it, letting yourself go through, the highs, the lows, the sideways, but you're standing here. And I think that needs to be applauded, because, you've been through some pretty difficult stuff. So I think kind of finding that tiger within you to say, you know what, I'm better than this, you know what I mean? I'm bigger than this. And kind of starting there. And not necessarily muting it, but, letting it get out there and letting it get behind you.
I want to add too, because I had this issue. You guys know I have attention deficit disorder. So for me to silence my mind, when I first started meditating, I had the same issue. I'm like, this is supposed to be peaceful. Why are ugly experiences coming up? Mean things people have said to me, or whatever. So I found it unpleasant, and it was also, I felt physical chaos happening, right? But the longer I continued it, I even got a coach who taught me how to gently push away those thoughts, because the more you resist them, they actually enlarge. So I learned, and I read books, and there were tools that helped me along the process to silencing my mind and really stilling, and all of the physical sensations I would get. I would feel like eruptions, it would almost make me not angry, but things would come up. whatever emotion it was. Sometimes it was anger. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not what's supposed to happen. So I read books and I got a coach who taught me about walking meditation, taught me about the different kinds of meditations. And I implemented those things and I learned how to gently, like, don't be mad at yourself for having thoughts of negative experiences. It's okay, but learn and try to practice. It's a practice. Meditation is not it's gonna take you a while. Think of what, 40 years of living, 50 years, 30, 20 years of living, trying to silence your mind for 10 minutes is a lot. We've got responsibilities, we've got, to be somewhere today or not. But our mind is constantly going, especially those who suffer from ADHD or ADD, and even the average person but it's a practice. I would say meditation is a practice, and it also helped me to compartmentalize my thoughts when I journal. I literally wrote sections in my journal, and it helps me to compartmentalize and put the feelings where they belong. And that way they don't have to be here, or in my back, or wherever else they're stored. Get them out.
Thank you for this.
Hell yeah.
Next question. We're gonna make sure we get through everyone. We want to make sure there's one person answers the question, so we make sure we get through everybody. But yes, please go ahead and answer your question, please.
I have two questions.
Go ahead.
One,
Can we get one, please? Just one? Yes. Make sure we
this
get through
one is
everybody.
piggybacking off of what Keri said.
Okay.
THS class 99. But I wanted to ask you, THS, like high school. So I wanted to ask you, doctor or anybody, can you guys talk about how trauma in our responses show up in our body? Like I know dis-ease and things that, autoimmune disorders and several other things show up later in our bodies based on trauma. We don't realize that because we don't know how it affects us long term. So can we talk more about like the amygdala, prefrontal cortex, our fight, flight, or freeze, and fawn response, and how we use those in our relationships and our everyday, interactions with adults and loved ones?
He knows all about that. I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, I can't speak on it. But out of mind is devil's playground for sure.
That's a beautiful question. It's a very large question. What I can say though is trauma does affect different parts of the brain, and I think where we can move forward in that is understanding that you are a new person once trauma has come, and so you have to start moving forward, not trying to move things out, but to move forward, accepting what's true, and then becoming the shift. I think that's what helps us move through trauma. It does show up in our body if we fight, if we do run away, if we do freeze, if we do fawn, that whatever happened in that moment just stays in that space. That's why I answered that question, make it bigger. You have to physically be able to get that thing out, because instead of relating it to a story, this is exactly what happened. I'm feeling this in my body right now. I'm feeling like I feel all this tension in my shoulder. Can I just be with this tension in my shoulder? Instead of trying to get your brain to understand what's going on, I think a lot of the gift is in just being with what happened now that it's formed in your body. Trying to understand it is going to put you in a loop because you don't know. You can't figure that out. So yeah, we can talk about each part of the brain. We could be here all day talking about each part of the brain. But the truth is, you have to understand that whatever traumatic thing happened, you are a new person because of that. And that new person has to move forward and continue to navigate this world and shift forward versus trying to shift so much back. That's just my take on it and how I work with people.
Thank you for that question. Next question, please.
I also would like to add in the book, The Body Keeps the Score, definitely talks a lot about that.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you all being vulnerable and sharing everything today. My question is, how can we individually or as a community kind of deconstruct the notion that we have to be strong, we just put up with it, because that definitely damages our mental health. We just put up with it, we just think, oh, we're okay, I just need to get through this, but how can we, either as a community or individually, kind of deconstruct that notion?
I mean, I would just go back to, talking about it and realizing that it's okay not to be okay, like I said. I think the more you talk about something, Obviously there's negative effects to that as well, but, I think the more you talk about it and get it out in the open, we'll kind of handle some of that. And, just very quickly to go back to the last question, it's, individuals that are living with a mental illness, their life expectancy is estimated to be about 25 years less than general population. So it's important to think about overall wellness, nutritional, all that stuff. But, back to your question, just talk about it and not be afraid, to be vulnerable. And that can be many different ways. It doesn't necessarily need to be out in the open, but just within yourself, being willing to be vulnerable and whatever that means for you. And don't let anyone else tell you what that means for you, because you're the only one that matters at the end of the night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Thank you so much. I want to kind of touch on something, Dr. Crystal, I think you were getting there, and this is something that I think I've been noticing more about myself. And I have this hypothesis that, like, as a society, globally, we're all going through a collective trauma, especially these last 2 years, and we're processing it, how we're processing it. And I know sometimes when I connect with people, every person I talk to, I almost have to assume you're going through some shit. Like, you are going through some things. For me, I think I want to be there for my tribe, even my acquaintances, my colleagues. I want to be able to provide them with a space. And in respecting my own boundaries, sometimes I've noticed I put myself in a situation where I open a door for them, but then they come back. And I'm just like, I think I've reached my capacity with being able to absorb or without absorbing. And I love the thought of sharing tools, so thank you, I'm gonna use that line. But how can I navigate that space without shutting them down? Like, how do when I realize, like, I think there's either a codependency happening or I'm being triggered because I have shit I'm dealing with too, and I don't have the capacity, like, what can I do without shutting it down?
I think it's important to know that codependency happens on both ends. So likely, I won't say you were calling it in, but there was something in you that wanted that experience. And so with that, if you ever do move forward in that conversation, I do think you have to be open to continuing or walking someone into another place or saying, I've had situations where people have found my therapist for me. But also, there's a difference in meeting someone and supporting them and meeting someone because they need help, because then you become the savior. And then that's why that pressure is on there. So maybe moving it in the place of wholeness, of I am here, I see you, what is it that you need? Sometimes that door that you are opening is because there's a need that you need to feel, that they're feeling, and then it's too much and you have to stop. But it's kind of because the dependency wasn't ever interdependent, it became codependent from your desire.
And I would just briefly add, set those strong boundaries right up front of, hey, I'm going to be here for you up until this point, and then I'll help find, that next level for you, but I only have enough emotional capacity to be here up to this point.
I like that.
And then I'll do everything in my power to kind of help you, find that next step, but then I have to wash my hands to the largest thing.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna take 2 more questions. Run out of time. I'm gonna take 2 more questions. We'll go here and we'll go here.
How are you doing? I'm Keri with Let's Talk About It. My question is actually for Frederick. My question is, it's been said that individuals with serious mental issues have an expectancy of 25 years or less than a normal population. Would you speak more on that? But with that being said, what do you think is needed for the mental illness individuals out in the world?
I feel like you're a plant. I think, when you think of mental health challenges, I think some of the issues that lead to, the decreased life expectancy is, issues with, poverty is a big example of it. I think, energy levels plays a huge part. That with depression, for example, if you're not getting out of bed, you're not going to go to a doctor. You're not going to seek the care that you need, because you're just gonna kind of shut yourself off from the world. So you see a lot of chronic disease that happens as a result of mental health challenges. Obviously suicide, I think everyone's afraid of that word, and I think we need to stop being afraid of it. If you look at, suicide, there's 2% of the population when you think about it. It seems like a small number, but 2% of 300 million, of individuals that are committing suicide, veterans, different communities. So all of these sort of chronic health disease, poverty, not getting the care that you need, not being willing to worry about your physical wellness, whether it's, your eating habits, exercising, all of that stuff. Just, you're hearing voices, you're not going to go out into public, so you're not going to go to a gym, or you're not going to go to a store, so you're going to be calling, ordering takeout. So I think that all kind of contributes to it. And what was the second part of the question?
What is it that you feel is a need in the community for mental illness patients right now?
Yeah, I think for what we do in Clubhouse, but I think it kind of rings true in general. I think it's the need for one, obviously funding around just mental health in general. Georgia, just passed HB 1013, which there's good parts to it and bad parts to it, but one of the things that it does is it opens up access to healthcare. Where now if you were to go to the doctor for a broken arm, as opposed to going to the doctor for mental health challenges, you'll now get the same level of care, which I think is super important. So, I think that is the main thing, obviously, is money to, have more community-based programs, have more doctors that are willing to go into mental health care. I mean, if you look at it for a therapist, I mean, you're looking $250 an hour in a lot of places, and that's just, for a lot of the communities that we live in, I can't afford $250 an hour, and I do pretty well for myself, and I insurances aren't covering it, so I think better access to care. I think, very quickly, individuals who are living with mental health challenges need three things. They need good psychiatric care, good medical care, and then they need good community support. So when you look at it like that, if we can find a way to kind of bring all three of those things together, and that's what we try to do with Clubhouse, I think you'll see, better mental health numbers in general, because people have access to care, they'll be willing to get out, they won't be afraid. So, I think it's a whole bunch of things.
That's dope. Thank you.
Well, no, that's not always false. I don't pay that, but in LA I have.
Okay, we got one more
Yeah, it
question.
should definitely be lower. I've never paid more than $150
Yeah, so
in
we
Atlanta.
got one more question, so
That's fine.
hold that thoughts. Last question, please.
Good point.
Hello, my name is Damon Jackson. I'm in entertainment industry. I'm a survivor of domestic violence as well as molestation. I tried to be as transparent as possible, so I did an interview. And in that interview, basically, the person doing the interview kind of tried to invalidate my story, so it kind of made me want to close in and not be expressive about what I've been through in my situations. And I still want to help people. I want to be a help to somebody, but I've also been told that in order to help, you have to be whole. In order to heal, you have to be whole. And so, what tips or resources can you give me in order to help me guide me through my healing process?
I can speak on it. I'm very open about my story. For me, it's been really like, what up, Dean? That's my boy right there. Daniel was a great actor, great dude. Every time we just met in Atlanta, and every time I see him, he's always very supportive. He's always like, hey, bro, you need to be this and that. Good dude. I would say, man, just continue to surround yourself with good people and continue to really drive in reverse gear, remembering that trauma, remembering that past. It makes it hard for you to enroll in your future. So I just keep myself busy and active, working out, dancing, writing a song. The moment my mind goes to like some dark stuff, if I stay there, I'll start playing sad music, I'll start drinking, I may start talking shit, I may get online, and that's the type of stuff that makes people question their stability. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, we still have to live in this world, so we do want to make sure that we are stable enough so people want to do business with you. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't scare people away. Those are some of the things I've done. Really, really, really evaluate the people that surround me. It's not about testing them, but just watch how they are by the character and the fruits of their spirit. You know what I'm saying? Are they loving? Are they joying? Are they kind? Are they good to you? Will they go out of their way? Like my stylist came today. He didn't even, send over an invoice, but he wanted to make sure that I feel comfortable today because he knew this was, a great opportunity for me to be, out with the people and for me to learn something. So I would say just, man, lock it in with the real people and remember that you have to save yourself. And don't live in your depression and that darkness because it will kill you, bro. And love is light, you know what I'm saying? So when you got my number, you can always call me, for sure.
And while I'm not necessarily answering your question, I do want to say, thank you for your bravery and sharing your story. And I see you. I hope you feel seen in this conversation. You are so powerful. If no one told you this today, I'm really proud of you. I'm really fucking proud of you for sharing your story because that takes a lot. So I see you. From one survivor to another, I see you. I'm proud of you.
Right now, it's taking a lot out of me to do this, because I battle with so many triggers because of the whole situation, and so it's like I guess it hurts me more than it helps me, and I think that's also too part of my question, how do you battle with those triggers? How do you kind of see something to elevate?
I will say that everybody's journey is different, and that's why it's called mental wellness. That's why it's our wellness journey. There's no shortcut to healing. It's not overnight, and I'm pretty sure everybody in this room knows that. It's something that's a process. You're gonna hurt. You're gonna cry. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. You're gonna hurt. You're gonna cry. You're gonna feel. You're gonna feel a lot, but you have to acknowledge that you're feeling it. There's a difference between going through it and feeling through it. Because you can go through anything, but you have to feel through it in order to heal through it. Know that everything that you're feeling is valid. Do not let anybody gaslight you. Never let anybody minimize your experience. Know that everything about your truth is true. Know that everything that you're feeling is real. Hurt through it. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to kick and scream and cry and make it bigger. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say, you know what, this shit is tough. It's okay to say, you know what, today is really hard. But the fact that you got out of bed today, the fact that you're telling us your story, the fact that you're brave, the fact that you're courageous, the fact that you survived, that's enough. And you are enough. And we see you.
I know we're about to wrap this up, but can I just add to one thing you said? One thing I learned in therapy was that I can't avoid or run from my triggers. I must understand them, because a lot of people, I won't even go there, but we have to understand what our triggers are. You have to evaluate them and understand what our triggers are. And sometimes I'm sabotaging myself and putting myself right into the trigger box, because it's just human nature sometimes. But I have to know, it's the awareness. So I think therapy honestly was key for me to understanding, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. I did this to myself, or this is why I'm triggered by that conversation or by this person, or something about them reminds me of that. Pinpointing my triggers so that I can now process them and deal with them, as opposed to not pinpointing them and just running from everything that I think is triggering me.
Yeah, it's an everyday process. I mean, I seen something yesterday that was shameful and it just pissed me off. And I hit Hollywood Unlocked and I was like, what's up with this, So that was a trigger for me. So I know that I need to maybe unfollow this particular platform because they be posting stuff that I just don't like. You know what I mean? Because for real, mental health is serious, you know what I'm saying? People, we go through stuff, we get mad, and, you know what I'm saying? Somebody may piss you off, you know what I mean? It's like somebody came to my house and I'll be real quick, but they all sassy, they figure at me, and I'm a loving person, but why Like it's almost like you have control of your own flesh, you know what I'm saying? So those people, I'm trying to get very far away from them. As soon as I see that spirit, I gotta go. So your discernment is everything. You gotta protect yourself, you know what I'm saying? We all gotta love ourselves enough, you know what I'm saying? And remember that we all we got. So hopefully we leave here today charged up with a renewal mind and a confirmation that we got this, and it starts with us today.
Yeah, so thank you for everyone that showed up. Panelists, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Very, very grateful for you guys to come out here. This is really, really important to us. This is our first one of many at the Warburns. So shout out to the Warburns team. Love you guys. We'll be doing more things, not just in mental health and cancer, low income families, homeless, entrepreneurship. So we're excited. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, and you guys have an amazing, amazing